Hi, let's talk about the coming MAGA Republican government shutdown. So, in case you haven't been following the news closely, there is a possibility of a partial government shutdown this Friday and a total government shutdown a week from Friday. We're talking about the federal government. Why is this? Well, it's because the federal government's budgets haven't been approved by Congress for a number of reasons. The budgets are supposed to be approved in October or by October because October is the beginning of the fiscal year for the federal government. And the federal government's budget is actually a number of budgets. It's, I think, 11 different budget bills that have to be approved by Congress. Rarely does Congress get them all approved by October. And so because they're not allowed to spend money that hasn't been budgeted, they do these things called continuing resolutions. And continuing resolutions basically say keep spending at last year's budget levels until we get this bill figured out. It's not necessarily a bad thing because they are very complex and very big bills, but it's unusual for a Congress to get them all done by October the 1st. However, this Congress has been so bad about it, particularly the Republicans have been just horrible about holding up bills for various reasons, that they have had to do continuing resolutions ever since October. Well, now we have a deadline this Friday of 4 government agencies that are going to run out of money because their budgets haven't been approved. And those are the Departments of Agriculture, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. And then next Friday, everything runs out of money. And you would think that the Republicans in Congress, along with the Democrats, would say, well, this is a really important job that we have every year. Why don't we get it done? But there's been a holdup all along. But this particular one is being held up by the Republicans in the House, and specifically by the MAGA Republicans, also called the Freedom Caucus, also called the Trump Lapdog Caucus. And the problem is that they refuse to go along with even a continuing resolution, much less a budget bill, unless they get all these cuts that they want. So let's talk about those quickly. All the Republicans in the House, all of them, want to cut the National Labor Relations Board by a third because, of course, they hate unions. They want to cut the Occupational Safety and Health Administration because, of course, they hate workers. And they hate regulation. And they want to cut Title I aid to schools, which I don't understand why they want to cut that, but they do. In addition to that, the Freedom Caucus wants to do these things. They want to defund Planned Parenthood, not just the abortion part, but all of it, including the family planning and all those other things. They want to completely eliminate the Job Corps, which does training for unemployed people. They want to ban any federal agency from even discussing diversity. And they want to cut aid to women, infants, and children so much that states will have to choose which women, infants, and children get food and which don't. So what happens if this thing goes to Friday? Well, the non-essential workers have to go home and they don't get paid. The essential workers have to work, but they also don't get paid. They have to work without pay. And all of this is because of a group of Republicans in the House who refuse to do anything to take care of it. In fact, a number of them have said that they think it'll be a good thing for the government to shut down. Now, if you are old enough to remember some of the past shutdowns, particularly ones that lasted for a while, you will remember that they caused a lot of turmoil. They really damaged the economy. And that could be part of the goal here, is to damage the economy so it affects Biden in the election this fall. But again, if you're old enough to remember, you remember that the last time the Republicans did a significant shutdown, it hurt them. Because the American people, even though they don't always pay attention, knew that it was Republicans who caused this. So what's the Speaker of the House doing? Mike Johnson, the MAGA Christian nationalist, insurrectionist Speaker of the House, sent everybody home. He said, let's take a vacation. We got all this sitting on our plate. Nope, let's go home. They're coming back today, and the deadline is Friday. And so they've got 3 days, 2.5 days at the time I'm filming this, to figure out what they're going to do. At 11:59 p.m. Friday, Those 4 agencies don't have money, and everybody has to stop. And let's not forget that in addition to this, the Biden administration has asked for aid to Ukraine, and Mike Johnson is sitting on that bill and refuses to even hear it. So when you hear about government shutdown, watch the news for the next 2 days, and let's see if they can even pull together a continuing resolution. No one expects them to pass the budget bills, but at least they could do a continuing resolution so that everything doesn't go kablooey come Friday and a week from Friday. Pay attention and remember who caused this. It was not President Biden. It was not any of the Democrats. It was not even the Republicans in the Senate. It was the Republicans in the House, and particularly the MAGA Republicans and the Speaker.